Steve Mera is a prominent figure in the field of UAP and paranormal research and has dedicated over 3 decades to actively investigating and analyzing a wide array of phenomena. His areas of expertise encompass Earth mysteries, parapsychological studies, the paranormal, cryptids, ancient sites, and unexplained atmospheric phenomena. Renowned for his rigorous scientific approach, unwavering integrity, and willingness to engage in respectful debate, Steve has made invaluable contributions to these fields. I recently had the privilege of sitting down with Steve to delve into his extensive research, and I was astounded by the breadth and depth of his expertise. Steve possesses a unique ability to convey complex ideas in a remarkably accessible manner, delivering them with an infectious enthusiasm and palpable excitement. I hope you enjoy the interview. I found myself very much into this subject for a long period of time, and then life happened, and I took a step back from it. And in recent years, that's certainly changed again, and I'm back in it. And with all the new activity going on, it's pretty hard to miss. And I've found that there are many people just like myself who are either new to the topic or they're returning to it after a hiatus of some time. And what I'm trying to do with my channel is educate those folks who are coming back to it or coming into it for the first time and give them the tools to understand what is going on and sort of give them a framework on how to think about what is happening. I came across your work when I was doing deep dives into the YouTube world, and I just kept finding your videos. They're everywhere, and they're so good. Every time you would say something or he would ask a question, and I would think of the next question, and you were already answering it. You were just like on to the next thing, and it was almost like a fire hose of information. So
that's good. I'm glad to have caught up. Really, the complexities of the UFO phenomena is no easy task to digest in one radio show. But it's a complicated subject. I mean, 40 years on in the subject for me, and I'm still learning. Anybody who's going to come into this subject thinking that they're going to chip away and get some result at the end of it. I don't know if you'll even manage it in a lifetime. And that's to be a fair statement, I believe. Because I think, though that I have chipped away at that block a bit, I have to say, myself and my colleague, Barry Fitzgerald, who we work with on a regular basis. And, but you know what, for me, it's about advancing the subject. It's about, because it's just static and it needs to change. And it's about taking a piece away with us that we can learn. I'm not into fanciful stories. When I go and lecture anywhere around the world, I talk about evidence. I talk about the things that we find, and I'm not relying on evidence from other people's evidence, because it's their belief and it's their evidence. And how do I know their evidence is correct and that sort of thing, So I literally have to work on my own stuff and prove my way forward and finding the evidence for myself. And if it's not there, then I don't call it. But everybody in this field kind of knows me from my work that I don't shy away from turning around and saying, well, that's a hoax, that's a fraud. I always stick to my guns. I call it as it is. There's a lot of hokey stuff out there. There's a lot of dodgy people out there as well. Some of them, unfortunately, even within the subject. It's a minefield, and that is added to the problem that we have trying to understand the complexities of this phenomena, because we're led all over the place with different theories and different beliefs and fake news and fake stories. And, when you really get down to the nitty gritty of this, you can really only rely on your own stuff. You really can. I mean, though that I'm friends with so many people in this field around the world, and I call them good friends because I've known them for a long time and I've worked alongside them. And they all have a piece of the puzzle, and they all bring that to the table, and that's great, But for me, I didn't start in ufology. most of these guys they're historians, they're researchers, they're investigators within the UFO subject. I didn't start in the UFO subject. I started in psychology, in parapsychology, and the paranormal, and I came into the UFOs from that angle because I found the path from the other side. It's like most people who spent a long time in this subject researching UFOs will be no doubt recognize the paranormal associations with the UFO. But you have to spend a long time in the field to recognize that. Otherwise, you're going to fall for the old ruse, which is the extraterrestrial hypothesis. These things are traveling the distances of space from vastly crossing the universe or wherever to visit us here on planet Earth. That's the ruse. That's what they want to keep you thinking. But it isn't. The evidence. I mean, people, everybody willingly just says ETs, ETs. But if you actually look for the evidence, Clay, I'm thinking, well, where's the evidence that these are extraterrestrial in origin?
Could we pause there for 1 second, because I think that's where I'd like to start this conversation, and just to back up just a little bit. And I understand that you are also formally trained in electrical engineering. Is that true? So you have a technical background. You seem to approach your work with like a crime scene investigator. And I feel like most of the world, the sort of the mainstream view of this topic, we start with the physics that we understand, and we say everything that falls outside of this box can't be real. Yeah. So we just don't look at that. Right. So you have a guy like Neil deGrasse Tyson's waiting for a UFO to land on the White House lawn, and then he can come out and do an interview on his podcast. But you take the opposite approach, it seems, and start with, look at what's happening, and let's work backwards from that. Can you talk about your beginnings in this field, and what was the moment that set you on this path? This is such an interesting line of work. How did you get into it to begin with?
What you're talking about is do we work backwards? It's a deducing category, really. I mean, you work backwards in criminal psychology, for an example. I've done some criminal psychology. I've done forensic psychology, forensic parapsychology, experimental parapsychology. And the process of investigation, you work back, because you look what you presented. Because if you're looking at a crime, it's already happened. You're looking at a crime site, and you're saying, kind of working out, okay, what's happened here? How did it get to this point? What do I have to deduce to get to this point? What methodology do I have to apply? So I work backwards, and I look at the feasibility of things, how they fit into certain categories, and I work out the plausibility of them, the plausibility factor. And just because something doesn't lie within our rationality, then it means that the extraordinary is the only plausible approach. It's as simple as that. It's black or white. And just because there is no box that says this exists does not necessarily mean it doesn't, because that's how science progressed. That's how science works. Gravity didn't exist once until we've proven it did. Light waves and all sorts of different. All science is the same thing. So, and I come in as a science angle, but I deduce it backwards. I kind of work in a formula like criminologists do or psychologists usually do. And I apply my training and my work to the process of the investigation of the unknown. Now, that can apply to anything. I will deal with anything. I'm not a ufologist. I'm not a paranormal guy. I literally come in as like a scientist, and you can put anything you want on my table, which is unexplained, be it cryptids, crop circles, earth mysteries, ancient sites, you name it. But the whole process of investigation is applied the same manner. I work backwards. And I take out these things and go, well, that's not right. And I let people know that's not right. It's not a matter of me walking away. Because what's interesting is people seeing how I get to that conclusion. So that's why I always made it a point that if I think something is fake or hoaxy, I put it out there. I let people know. So I'm not the guy that you pick up the phone to and say, Steve, we want you to be involved in this, knowing it's a fake. Because the first thing I'm going to turn around and say, well, if I find it's a fake, then I'm going to put it everywhere, and everybody, you won't want that. So I'm not the guy to ring if that's the case. But if there is a real mystery there, then I am. And I'll apply every effort I possibly can. Doesn't mean I'll always find a conclusion, because sometimes there are things that are really outside the realms of our known physics. I can theorize with, regarding quantum theory and quantum mechanics and stuff. But I'm no professor in that area. So, I have to say, well, okay, this is my conclusion at this moment in time. It might be a theoretical conclusion because I just don't know. But most of the time, I have a damn good stab at it. But the thing is that with this process of investigation, you can apply what we can do in science to it and see what those results are. Because we do that in areas where people haven't even done it before, or they haven't been able to get hold of the equipment, or, it didn't even exist to do those tests. And certain time and location is everything in this game. And it is really significant. And that's another thing that is easily missed, those opportunities when experiencing phenomena. So it's a matter of applying all those things and then bringing in the evidence and then going back and retesting it, because it's no good me. I don't want to do a one-shot wonder. It doesn't mean anything. The science labs will just say, well, it's a fluke. Could be billions to one, but it's still a fluke. And flukes can happen. We do know that. I need replicability, so I have to go back and do it again and get the same results. And then if it's using a piece of equipment, I have to replicate that piece of equipment to make sure that piece of equipment is faulty, and so on and so forth. These are so many things that have to be done before I'd even reach a conclusion. But once that process has started working with that process, and with my colleague Barry Fitzgerald, who we worked on Project Doorway over the last 6 years now, we're chipping away. We're finding key areas of research. And when we started to first put that bits of information out, it was something really interesting happened. I started getting contacted by think tanks and the Scientific Coalition of UAP Studies, which is one of the kind of academic UAP groups in the world. I know Hal Puthoff is part of that. I know Eric Davis has been involved, and a number of others, including Jacques Vallée, and asked to join. And I thought, well, this is a bit odd. Why would that happen? You just don't do that. And eventually when I get in there and I start asking questions, I realise that, okay, I'm not the only one that knows about some of this stuff, some of it. I brought some new stuff to the table. But some of the things that I'd done myself and found, I realised I'm not the only one, and that caught somebody's attention. So it's like ufology consists of like an onion. It's like these layers, different rings, and it's like it's compartmentalized, and it doesn't share with the outer community, and that outer community doesn't share with the community I call the circus community, which is all about the entertainment and all the love and light and all that. They're here to save planet Earth and all that stuff. There is layers to it, and it's a respectable layer, and it's a layer that you enter into and you kind of go, okay, this isn't really for the general public yet. And I've been involved in quite a number of experiments. 19 highly classified experiments. 2 of them have been released out of the 19. There's still 17 left for the public to digest over a period of time. But they've got to digest it in chunks. Can't drop all this on the laps of the general public in one fell swoop. It's too much to handle. The scientific community will walk away from it. I mean, even just the physics alone about, the whole process when you said about UFOs is not the elephant in the room anymore, that conversation, because of all the stuff the press have been all over it, the Pentagon and the 2 newspapers from the US. And I thought to myself, since when has the press ever been supportive of the phenomena? And it's quite interesting that they suddenly were. And I thought, okay, well, that kind of was hand in hand with an agenda here. And boy, was I right on that agenda. And I'm not the only one that knows about that. There are many other people that do suspect it as well. And being involved at those levels means that I get the opportunity to find out about other specialized pieces of work. which leads us to the same conclusion over and over again. But it's not the conclusion the general populace want to fit with. It doesn't lie, wouldn't lie right with them, especially when you turn around and say this phenomena is right under our noses.
Well, can you take a moment and expand on? I think I know what you mean when you say phenomena, and I've watched many hours of your presentations, and I've gone through and it's much bigger than I think most people can imagine. Can you paint a picture of what that word means when you say phenomena? What are you talking about?
Though it is difficult to believe, because what we've had a habit of doing, and it might have been done a long time ago on purpose, in fact, the compartmentalization of these subjects: spiritual, supernatural, paranormal, ufological, metaphysical, call it what you will. These have been compartmentalized on purpose. I'm sure they've been done that way because in the beginnings, when they realized, and I'll tell you how the authorities first realized about, I'm going to say alien beings, I'm going to say other intelligent entities, be it from wherever they are, which I don't think it's literally extraterrestrial in the meaning of what they think they are, was far, far long ago than anything pertaining to the UFO subject. I mean, we look at the alien abduction phenomenon. The first proper listed one was September 1961, Betty and Barney Hill. 61. What if I was to say, well, in the 1800s, we were communicating with these entities right through to 1900s, 1920s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. Well, as I tell you, those communications were going on long before the UFO turned up on the scene in association with these entities. The thing is that that's not where someone can really digest it very easily. When I say phenomena, I mean that when the reality we know, and quantum professors now all agree that our perception of reality is nothing like what we think. In fact, they even go on to say that the reality that we know doesn't even exist until we experience it. And the best way to me describe that is like, well, we can all envisage our homes in our heads, and we can all envisage our bathrooms. We can see it in our heads, but in reality, it doesn't exist until you go there and it becomes reality. This is where we are in the quantum physics area now. This is what's being proven. And so if you can wrap your head just around that this unusual matrix reality that we're living in, there is a manipulator. That manipulator, whatever the source it is, has the capabilities to bend reality, manipulate it to some degree, where incredible, profound coincidences might happen, which are uncalculatable by odds. It shouldn't happen. Those are evidence of those things that do happen. And sometimes every person might experience just one thing in their life and might question and go, God, that's just the universe doing something. It's just the universe playing out for me. Well, there's a bit more to it than that, because the most recent computer systems, artificial intelligence, they're so powerful now. 3 years, these AI machines were given data about the UFO phenomenon, the paranormal. And not just that, but the sub-subjects of it and the sub-subjects to that. Everything you can possibly think within the world of ufology, the paranormal, cryptids, you name it, everything. All for one reason. After 3 years, they pressed the button, which was last year, to get some form of conclusion as to what is responsible for it all. What is the big questions? What is it? How can it all exist? If they are extraterrestrials, then why should it have so much connectivity to the paranormal, which is supposed to be an earthly ancient phenomenon? It's strange. Mm-hmm. So they did that, and they pressed the button eventually, expecting reams and reams of information to come out. In fact, there's only a couple of lines. But it was what the AI said. The AI said there was so much connectivity between all of this phenomena that it deduced that there must be a single source. And that single source has the capabilities of creating physiological constructs. I'm a physiological construct. This is, everything is. But that's how phenomena can be. It can interact with us in a physical basis, and one minute it's metaphysical. We walk through walls, or the craft goes invisible, and so on and so forth. The boundaries of our physics hold us back, of our understanding. But to try and deliver that to the public, to say the phenomena can interact with us anywhere, anytime, right under our noses, and we wouldn't even know. We see a pinprick of this much, where this is the area of what's going on around us. And the only thing that we have to rely on that is not our sight, is not our hearing, it's none of the senses we'd normally use. It's our survival sense. It's still there within us. We get that feeling, the goosebumps, hair goes up on your neck. That's your skin on your body. It's your biggest organ. It connects to the survival sense, and it tells you things like, just because you don't see it, just because you don't hear it or smell it, it knows it's there. It's saying it's something there I don't like, push you into alert mode. The fight or flight starts kicking in. Problem is that you can't deliver that to the general public, and because there's got to be some form of control. It's got to be an adversary that we can control. And it can't be. It can't be controlled. It's an adversary. It cannot be controlled. It can interact with us anytime. It governs us. We're puppets on a string. And we can't say that. But what we can say is that we have to deliver something. So what they do is feasibility would say, okay, let's deliver this. That UFOs could be extraterrestrial and they're coming from other planets. When in fact, the evidence doesn't support that. The evidence supports that the subjects of UFOs have always been here. In fact, we might be the new kids on the block, to be honest. It predates history.
It sounds like that's kind of like what Jacques Vallée put forth. He's spot on. You align with that?
I've done some work with him, and he's absolutely spot on with his. He worked very cleverly in deductive methodology, I would say. He's done it very similar to me. And worked backwards and realised, well, hang on a second, what we're given all this UFO stuff and extraterrestrial hypothesis and da-da-da-da-da, but when you work back, you go, hang on a second, that ain't right, that isn't right, this isn't right. And that picture falls apart. And what you end up with is a consistent amount of cases that are all varied. All profound, of course, but all varied, such as it could be cryptid, paranormal, poltergeist, hauntings, whatever. And he realised that the connectivity between them indicates that picture's not quite right. But that's the picture that's got to be sold to us, because it's a picture that's manageable to deal with in the psychological way.
It's manageable. You can shoot down a UFO from another planet with a missile if you, I think that's what is that kind of where you're leading to, that the idea behind, and I'm just guessing here, but the cover up is that you can't. What good is the military to us if we're helpless against?
This phenomenon predates economy, predates ecology, predates even religion. Then where's it stand? Because we're going to throw it into one of these boxes. That's how we live now as a society. It's got to fit somewhere, right. But it won't, because it predates them all. It's ancient and old, and there's a occult and paranormal connection with this phenomena is a concern, or even scientific. And I mean, at the highest level in military, there are even science teams that are secretly working for the government on certain projects regarding the study of UFO phenomena, and they've walked away because of the occult connotation, especially if it's bothering to them in regarding their religious beliefs. So I'm not, don't get me, I'm not one of those guys going to turn around and say it's all demons. But what I will say is that the demon is a mask. The angel's a mask. The demon's a mask. These are all masks. The phenomena has always been the phenomena, but the mask is forever, ever changing. And it will continue to do so for as long as I think it will do so, to fit in, into our society and our times and our beliefs at that time. It alters itself. It gets under our skin, and it sits with us, and it influences us. Even it influences even history. The fact is, though, it's governed by some form of manner, but it is all the same phenomena, but presenting itself in different forms.
Would you say that, do you agree with Jacques Vallée's appraisal that this is some kind of a control mechanism and it's teasing us towards some kind of inevitable evolution in our thinking, or is there something else?
We've purely been developed. Humanity has been developed. They're never going to get there. They can't tell you that. We have to stick with the old evolutionary theory, of course. But people realize when they say evolutionary theory, it's theory. Should underline that a few times, shouldn't they? Because even Darwin wasn't, he even theorized. That's why he put theory in it, because it was just an idea. He didn't really know. Mm-hmm. The more we research now, the more studies in DNA and things we find, we think that the humans are, somewhat manufactured to some degree, especially chromosome 2. You can't get that spliced. I mean, the only time you can get that done, last time we saw it, it was Dolly the sheep, and we know what we created her. So it's questionable as to everything in regard, but it's got to be managed, and we've got to come up with something. So that's what it's going to be, the evolutionary theory, but it goes back along a lot more than that. It's about developing humanity, not just in a physiological sense and bettering us over the process of years, but also in our psychological process, consciousness. We do have to change. But the problem is we can be so very, very clever about this in regarding how our consciousness. Well, the other side of it is that we're still children and playing with matches, with technology. We don't need it. It's all in here, not out there. But we like to grab hold of the physical and make that work.
It's too big to wrap your mind around, because on the one hand you have like Betty and Barney Hill, where Betty draws the star map and says, this is where they told me they were from. And then later we find out where that is. And then you have whistleblowers like David Grush saying, we have physical craft. We have them. They're in a room. You can walk over and knock on it with your hand. You can pick up pieces of this stuff. It's real as the table you're sitting at. And we have biologics that are in cold storage, and maybe even some living ones. So there's obviously a physical, real component here, but where does that break off and become the non-physical?
But at some point in the future, it'll start getting delivered into society in small digestible chunks. It has to at some point, but it'll sit on it for a very long time. And that will lead us into new areas of research, technology, and advancement. These things, people, as if they're supposed to travel all the distances of vastly through the space to crash here, really. No, all the things that we have are usually given. They just drop out the sky, they crash. I mean, the source sacrifices technology, biologics, and physical material to eventually, at some point, it will advance us. Now, how do we know that? Because the phenomenon is aware of what takes place in the future actions. How do we know that? Some of the experiments, secret experiments that were conducted when in communication with these things, got to the point where we were asked that you can ask questions. And when you pose those questions, you can get the answers before you even ask the question, which means they know what's going to happen. They know what we're thinking. They know from the people involved what we're going to be doing. You just can't out-cheat this thing. He always knows. There's no way around it. We can't block our thoughts. And someone somewhere is associated is going to be doing something, and they can't block their thoughts. So the phenomenon realizes and sees us for what we are. And it's manipulative. It's, can be even deceptive at sometimes. And enticing, but the fact is that it does it for its own awards, not ours. What we tend to try to get sometimes is a quick jump by, can you please give us some information regarding advanced technology, aviation technology, like Bell and Douglas and Boeing in the 1970s around sales tables communicating with these things. We never give it them. They gave us little bits of this and a little bit of that, and they keep them coming back and a little bit more, and it gets under your skin. But
like you would do with a kid, like a little child, you wouldn't tell them everything. You would give them just enough to get them to learn
because the more
on
you
their
come
own.
back here, you build up and establish a conduit, and that conduit leads them into your life, which means sometimes that can start. We don't have to be around a seance table anymore. It can start interacting with you in your home, with your family, and you don't want those sort of things. It's not always good. But and this is what this phenomenon does. It likes to have this basis and of establishment and draws you in to do that. It's like kids in a candy shop, and we just can't help ourselves. But the problem is that, you realize over a period of time, you've got to respite. You've got to respite between the communications, because if you don't, you get a slap on the hand. Sometimes it comes back as a vengeance, and it's not good. So you've got to do it in digestible chunks. And that's even for the researchers, that are heavily involved in the experiments. They can't just go at it all. We'd love to. It'd be great. Oh God, it's like, it's amazing when you see this stuff happening, and you think to yourself, it's mind-boggling. And the things I've seen, I can't begin to even put it into words. It shouldn't exist. The process, everything that I witnessed, and not just me, the others, just should not happen and could not exist according to what we know in this world. But that is not the case. So for me, which I say I've been honoured to be in certain places at certain times, involved in certain experiments, to witness that stuff. But you do it too often. You open the door and it doesn't quite shut. And it leads them to be able to keep the conduit open enough for it to start to interfere into your life. And they like to do that occasions, especially because there are varied things you're dealing with. It's a similar source, I would say, or kind of the same source, but might have different ideas and different beliefs and things that are different agendas that they might want to do. And the thing is that this phenomenon is so deceptive. You've only got to apply some common sense. We can go to the bottom of the North Sea and see creatures there we can't even imagine. We've never seen before. How the hell? And that's just at the bottom of our North Sea. Yeah, all these creatures, all these different beings come from varied thousands of different planets, all have 2 arms, 2 legs, 2 eyes, nose and a mouth. Don't make sense because
I've always struggled with that. And I find that very interesting because I think like when I see in particular the reptilian thing, because when people talk about reptilians, I just see the Gorn from Star Trek.
The whole subject is Star Trek. You look at it, all varied aliens of bipedal origins coming from varied planets. Star Trek and Star Wars episode. And that's what we've had. And that's why it's in society and so strong in the media and the movies and the TV and serials. And you can't get away from it now. You'll never get away from it because that's what they wanted to do, indoctrinate the idea. And boy, have they done a good job. What they don't want to say, so the phenomenon is representative of what it wants to be because it manipulates us. It could be anything. When dealing with children, it can be an animated toy. It can be a stuffed rabbit. It can be a deer, an owl. It can be anything it wants. It can be something representative of the paranormal, apparitions, shadow, the jinn. It's the same thing. All these things are all one thing, doing what they want to do. And this is so ridiculous.
It's really interesting because I'm sorry to cut you off, but the shadow thing, I've seen them myself. I've seen, I remember being in the laundry room of my house, and I swear I thought my wife was standing right behind me, and I said her name, and I turned around, and I just saw a shadow, and it was gone, and there was no one there. I was alone in the house. She was out doing something else. And I think so many people have had experiences like that they can, as soon as you expand the subject a little bit, people go, oh, yeah, well, I've had that. That's happened to me. Or
I think statistically speaking, everybody will have at least one experience in their lifetime. They're going to question and go, okay, that's odd. That's weird. I don't know. Don't fit into normal things. Yeah, we're all going to do that. Yeah. That's just how common that phenomenon is. It's a lot more common than we think. I've talked to people who said, I might be living in a haunted house. Really? Well, why do you think that's so strange? You said, because I don't talk to people, I don't tell people about it. Really? I said, well, you'd be surprised that within locality of literally a mile of your house, I've done 6 investigations. What do you think about that? So people don't talk about this stuff. But the fact is that there's a commonality with things. So there's very strong geological connections as well. But the whole process of this is difficult to try and get people to understand that, because the divide between the paranormal and UFOs, people are never going to say, oh, it's a haunted house, it's got nothing to do with UFOs. All right, well, when you get apported phenomena, I mean, poltergeists or intelligent hauntings, if you research those, and I can't believe nobody had ever done this. Why are they not analysing apports? Well, they talk to the guys and they go, well, it's just a mug. It's just this. Is it? Why? Because it weighs and looks the same and weighs the same and feels the same, so it is the same. Really? Have you analysed them? None.
And to be clear, you're talking about objects that are materialized out of thin air.
It's a physical construct. Yeah.
Did you not, in one of your presentations, and please, I apologize if I get this wrong, but was there not a coffee cup you once talked about
and
in
the fact
detail?
is that when we put it through the analysis and the computers, looked at the results, if there was a scale effect, judging, because we had a sample mug as well. We had the apported mug and the sample mug. So exactly the same mugs, come off the same production line, bought in a pack of 4. We've got an apported one and the normal one. And is there any difference? Well, we all do. And you think, well, no, there's no difference. You can't feel any difference. You can't see any difference. There's no difference. In fact, I'd never tell. There's no normal physics that we could look at and say they are completely different. You wouldn't say so. And it would have got overlooked forever until you press it and say, well, sod it, and we're going to analyze the hell out of this thing. We've got the opportunity. What is it? Why did it arrive 12 degrees higher in temperature? Well, was that because it was taken apart and put back together atomically, which causes friction between the electrons, therefore heating up? It's all Star Trek-y stuff, that, but, Well, you know what?
Yeah.
We realised that because we just went in there to look at it. We realised under the skin, in other words, the analysis of it looks nothing like the mug, the original mug. In fact, the scaling effect on the computer would say, it's not even the mug. It's not even the same mug. It's not even the same item. And the way, because it changed so significantly, you even have to do the question, is it even a mimic? I don't know. So what's interesting is that the diathermic reaction in the mug was crazy. And I knew I'd seen the diathermic reaction before somewhere in our files. And I've been like this a long time. And I thought, why have I seen that? So I started going through all the paranormal files over the years. And I thought, I've seen this, I know this. And I couldn't find it. And I beat myself up for ages, weeks. Where have I seen this before? And then I had to give up in the end because I just couldn't find it. And I was just sat watching television one night and I just had one of these epiphanies, one of these light bulb moments. Bingo. Not in the paranormal files, in the UFO files. So I went straight into the UFO cases. There was an incident. That's where it came from. UFO manifested, didn't fly in, didn't zoom in. It just, boom, manifested in a field at night with 3 people independent witnesses driving by that saw it. Science guys came out and took samples of the plants because it affected the plants where it came down. This was a girl known as a plant traumatology test. And it was about the biological traumology of the plants. And what they did is when they conducted the test, they did the same, very similar atomic radiation testing on it, which is like what we did with the mug. And they got the same diathermic reaction. So how can they get the same diathermic reaction? So then if that is the case then, and these are the same, if not similar diathermic reactions in 2 different things, one paranormal, one's ufological, then the manifestation of a mug and the manifestation of the UFO are utilizing the same physics here. But how can they be? This is extraterrestrial from another planet. And paranormal's ancient earthly stuff,
Unless you're on a giant, unless our whole world is a giant holodeck and we just switched on a computer, give me a Earl Grey hot.
Find these clues between them, and that's just one. Hundreds of what people are just not getting. That we're representative of the whole phenomena. People that have UFO encounters are usually people that have had paranormal experiences. People that have UFO encounters that haven't had a paranormal experiences usually have one after the incident. They're all connected. When Project Blue Book officers was first going out there, and they'd go out, "Oh, hello, Mrs. Brown, we've come to talk to you about the UFO. Oh, yes, it followed me and my husband home to the farm. But what's strange is that we had a week of poltergeist stuff going on. Oh, no, stick to the facts. We only want the UFO stuff, Mrs. Brown. We don't want no ghosty stuff, thank you very much." Compartmentalization was even happening in them days. I've seen the records. I've got the records. Didn't want to know. People were telling them. And it's the same now. They don't want people to make that too much connectivity.
So in the way you see the world, your picture of this reality, if I'm getting this correct, please correct me if I'm wrong here, is that this is these are all fish swimming in the same ocean. And where we are in the ocean is almost like a thermal layer where we can see what's in our thermal layer. But if you go up or down, there's all kinds of stuff going on. And it's been going on.
Yeah, I mean, they can look down, but we can't look up. We don't have mechanisms and conduits to do so. That mechanism was with our ancient ancestors. They knew, but then they weren't like us. We can all go and dig up an ancient bone up and say, "Oh yes, it was 5'5", and this is how it lived, and this is where it did this, and da da da." You try and tell me about its spiritualism. You try and tell me about its consciousness. They were massively ahead of us. This is why they were consciously aware of these other realities around them, that the other entities around them, and they were communicating with them all the time in different locations, in different ways. And they all had a specific way. If it's not the Native Americans going through fasting and smoking with certain services that they do to get to a higher level, spirituality. It's the same thing with in India. It's the same thing with even having chemicals, the DMT and stuff. It's the same process. We're just cutting through the layers of consciousness.
I'm so glad you went there, because I think about all the time when I'm all over the place, and I read Carlos Castaneda's stuff, and I see him talking about the Don Juan stories about, basically the medicine man's role is to be the emissary between worlds that can communicate and come back with useful information. And you see indigenous cultures that basically it's almost like they developed a technology they found a branch on the technology tree for consciousness, and they went there, and we didn't. We went mechanistic the other way. And meanwhile, all of the real action is over here. And so we're kind of over here trying to, do our thing with bottle rockets in space. But it's being able to enter an altered state, and then you can go anywhere instantaneously.
We're focused so much on this 3D plane of existence and the physical reality of it that we've got to succeed so well in that particular tiny piece of area with technology and all that sort of thing. We've really got to ruin the planet to get it, because it's really needed. When they miss the whole scope of everything around them, it doesn't even require that. It doesn't require it. It's like, say, spending 80 million on some type of new device that can send transmissions through space. Consciousness can do that like that. And
if we just knew how to train people for that purpose.
They have kind of messed in that field a little bit with remote viewing and stuff, and it works. But they'll never bring those details out, because it means you and me and everybody else is going to learn how to do it and can do it. Right? Well, everybody's got consciousness, right? Okay, so everyone's got consciousness, but to expand that consciousness requires sometimes training and the skills, because it's not what we've got to learn, it's what we've got to unlearn. That's the problem, because we've built these physical walls of reality around us. And if you realize that it isn't there anymore, and you're not restricted by those boundaries, then your consciousness grows, which means you can expand your mind to understanding things that you wouldn't relatively get that information for. Now, they don't want Joe Blogs on the street to be able to do that, because if they do that, then the society loses control over the populace. And you can't have an uncontrolled populace, you know? It's the way society is. Everybody will probably understand that one. And it means that we'll be level pegging, and they don't want that. So the idea is to keep us suppressed about how it was discovered in ancient times, the technologies that we were utilizing in ancient times. They say, oh, you know, how did they cut these and how did they build these and da-da-da-da-da. But what they're not going to tell you is that they had machines. What they're not going to tell you is that there are hundreds and hundreds of pits all over the world of ancient machinery, even turned to dust, because over thousands, you put a car engine out for 1,000 years in the desert, but there they are, you know, and they know. And how did he get that technology? Well, because it's, you know, we kind of get rebooted every now and again and things change, but you don't want that.
Do you just, I want to, there's so many questions I have and we have so little time, and I could spend all day talking about this. It sounds like you're saying that the cover up is that the way reality works is not what we think it is. And that's really the cover up, and that the whole timeline and the way that the paranormal aspect and the UAP, UFO worlds, all that was separated on purpose. And we were led down this other path to believe that this is nuts and bolts and we can really deal with it on a mechanical basis. When in fact, if you step back a little bit further than Roswell and just go back a little bit more, we're really dealing with what we would consider, I mean, I guess what most people consider the occult. And that's essentially what's actually going on.
Multiple reality entities from multiple realities. Popping in and popping out.
Like the Aleister Crowley Lamb.
Lamb was just one of those incidents, you know, furthered by the Vril Society and the German forces. So, you know, I furthered again and again, even with Bell and Boeing, you know, they're doing the same thing, tapping the source, building the conduit, communicating with them.
But do you subscribe to the notion that, I mean, we are getting physical craft and we are reverse engineering? Like we have, obviously, I believe we've cracked gravity, and that's probably something.
It's designed to advance us, and it will do eventually. It's not going to get into our public hands for a long, long, long time. But, and there'll be a long waiting game on that, just as there is with all sorts of things that have, you know, how long did it take to get, you know, some of the stuff that we've got today, Teflon, for example.
Do you really think that there's that much longer to wait? I get the sense that we're on the cusp of something, and it seems like if I were a betting man, and I'm not, but if I were, I would say the big wow moment will probably come within the next decade or two when someone demonstrates a functional anti-gravity craft. Like on a NASA test pad for everyone to see.
I can show you anti-gravity in my kitchen.
I've seen some of the stuff that you've put into your presentation. I've seen some of these craft that look like something out of Star Wars.
At this moment in time, there's 16 methods of anti-gravity we can produce, even on our own homes. You know, just applying electricity to a copper wire around 3 nails connected to a small balsa triangle piece of wood. You click it on it.
The T. Townsend electric gravitics. Yeah.
There's about 16 different various methods. I mean, anti-gravity is just one thing. There are lots of different versions of this, you know. So, but it's old news now, really. I know it's not to the general public, but, you know, it's kind of, okay, well, where are we now sort of thing, because they were utilizing.
But it seems like if that were the case, just to push back on that a little bit, if it were so simple, it seems like somebody would have a hover car in their garage that they built at some point.
You know what, they go for painting and stuff like that. Then they sell them, they're bought out, they're threatened, so on and so forth. There's thousands and thousands of people that have tried this. And it's the same old story. They implode. The researchers tend to implode. It's like it's so important to them to achieve it and have it out there, then they have to put it out for free. But nobody will, because they all want money for it. And if they just say, give it out for free, just do it. Don't paint it. Give it out. You know, the problem is you're going to paint, you want money for it, you'll never do it. Because there's a mechanism, the whole thing set up for you to fail.
God, I mean, geez, if that was the deal, if it was like you can go down in history forever as the person who did it and really like you'll be remembered for all time, but you won't make a dime, or you can take your chances trying to get $1 billion out of.
To fail, unfortunately, but that's it's the shameful of it. It really is. But the biggest problem that we're facing now is the deceit and misguiding of this phenomena, because the phenomena is, oh, well, we come from this planet. What's the one-liner that we always give? Oh, yeah, we need to save planet Earth. Really? What are you doing to save planet Earth? You're the ones and the other guys. Have you done anything, or have you sat back and let us rule? I mean, we talk about the ecology of planet Earth, how to save. We need to save planet Earth. It's pointless waste of space now, because if we should have done it 25 years ago, and now we've gone past the point where we can do anything. It's a rolling thing. It's going to take another 25 years if we press the button today on that all to slow down. We're already 25 years past the danger point. So now they're spending all the money looking for new planet Earth and saving old planet Earth, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that might be, this is just my own personal hypothesis, behind what the disclosure push from, I think what we're seeing is some kind of a factional, I'm with Richard Dolan on this. I think there's a factional split inside the program. And I think what you're seeing is a lot of younger people. David Grush is 36 years old. You know, if you've got kids and you're working on a fusion, you know, if you've got a box that can produce fusion power the size of a toaster, and it's like, why are we holding on to this in a lab? We need to get this out there yesterday, because my kids are going to grow up in this world. Like, we really need to. We're still driving cars. The same, you know, we're doing this burning dinosaur juice.
You know, we're flying around in these aircraft now, still moaning about 8.5-hour flight to the US from the UK, and it's just, you know, oh God, you know. But they're going to keep us there, because what happened is, when they got the technology in the 1940s and 50s, it went black. Everything went black, and they just kept us there. Insane notion. Keep using the same aircraft. Keep doing this. It's got to be engines. It's got to be fueled. Every single day we're pumping out 3 billion or 150 million drums of oil out of the planet. Yeah, we're drying up. We need to start doing other things, but you know what? They'll take every last drip, and then what they'll do is they'll go on to gas and to use the gas to create the oil and bleed it and bleed it and bleed it, and it'll be like a prune by the time they finish to get planet Earth, because that's the physics that they understand. What they can't get their head around is the other stuff, because it doesn't make sense to them, because they can't understand it. You know, how do you understand the understandable?
I sometimes wonder, and I may be reaching a little bit here, but when I think about reptilians, the term reptilian, I wonder if we're talking really about the reptilian part of our brain that is so base level that it just can't conceive of higher possibilities than immediate survival, fear. And when you look at the people who are in charge of making these kinds of decisions, that's who they are. That's the type of person that gets to be CEO of a gigantic oil conglomerate. It's somebody who's, they're focused right here, right now on how to make money in the next quarter, and they're not thinking about 50, 100 years from now.
It don't matter. I mean, the society shouldn't even have to think about the worry about economy. Who's got more money? Who hasn't? Well, what if it didn't exist? What if we didn't need it? What if we just did what we did, like ancient societies did? They didn't need an economy system.
I want to pivot on that ancient societies bit here, because while we have the time, I want to cover a few other things, but I'm so fascinated by this. I could spend another hour. Can we talk about mummies? I would really love to pick your brain, because it just seems like this story is going to go on forever. And I know that you know a thing or two about Peruvian mummies. Can you talk to us a little bit about, you of course made a documentary, and I saw that you recently put out an update to that documentary that had some kind of dark conclusions about what's going on. My wife actually is Peruvian, so I spend time in Peru as much as possible. I'm there. I would love to get your perspective. What is going on here?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. Well, the story goes back quite a while to 2016, to be honest with you. It all kind of started happening. But I've been involved in those type of cases before. I resolved and concluded the case of the Montauk Monster, which was a creature that washed up on the beach of Montauk, and it was all the press all around the world were calling it a Montauk Monster. And it's this, like, it was a skinless, bloated raccoon. I'd been in the sea for a long time, and that's what happens. But it was concluded. But but what the guys did, this was the Inkari Institute, which asked us to be the official investigators. And they messed up by asking myself and Barry to be those people to investigate, because I don't think they realised. What they realised by asking us was they know that the information is going to go really far and wide with our involvement. What they didn't consider that it wasn't going to be the information that they would want. So that's where they made the mistake. And of course, we went to Peru. We did the physical examinations on all of them, every single one. The ones that are not being seen at the moment, which is the even small ones are about a foot long, which was clearly a fish head on a body of bird bones and whatever. But and the smaller ones, and then the two real bodies, which was a small baby one, which was Wawita, and the large body female Mera. And we conducted a full investigation, and analysis was carried out. And it was questionable. After the first analysis took place, there was a lot of confusion with the science guys at the labs in Sri Lanka. And we really did pick a good lab, because these are the guys that work for forensics for the police in Sri Lanka. So they know what they're doing. But they came back and it was like really odd, because they were saying, well, it's odd, it's unusual. And we said, well, what do you mean? Well, it doesn't make sense. But at that time, we were being pressed by so many newspapers, so many news teams. Give us what you know, give us what you know. And I said, well, it'd be a bit premature because they haven't fully convinced, but I mean, I can only tell you what they can tell us. That it's a bit odd. It's a little bit unusual. Well, they ran with that, didn't they? And then before you know it, it's all, oh, well, it's odd. The labs can't understand it. It's this, that, and the other. Therefore, it has to be extraterrestrial. Of course, that's what the spin that the press were putting on it. Right. If they just waited another 12 months, because that's how long it takes, a long time to get DNA, and it's expensive, these testing done, that they would have known why they made those mistakes. And when we had a second trip back to complete the analysis, we were guided where to take samples from, and they were taken from certain points where we could check the consistency between bones. And that is when they realized, now we know why we didn't understand it. Because the sample contains not just one, not just two, but 3 different human DNA strands. Because it's a mixture of 3 different people put together. It's as simple as that. But you're looking at that initially, you're going to go, what the hell? And eventually we came out. But the problem is that the first video we put together, and it's called Alien Mummies from Peru. It's out on Amazon. And it tells you about our journey. And you know what? It was probably one of the most difficult investigations we had ever to do with self-combined, because dealing with Cusco is not easy at 14,000 feet, because, as you well imagine. And secondly, that, when things started going a bit pear-shaped for them, they realised we were onto them. Of course, they tried to blackmail us. We realised then, okay, well, we know you know your game now. We're on to you, yeah? But unfortunately, they give us everything. All the scans, the deep CT scans and everything. Oh, no, that's unfortunate for them. Because I'm not going to go and give them an X-ray guy. I'm not going to go and give them a dentist. I'm not going to go and give them all these dodgy doctors that seemingly are turning up and saying, yes, the mummies are real. You check their backgrounds. What we're going to do is we can go right to the top, the very best, and go to the professors in anthropology. So we did. Moscow State University, Paris University, Lima University. And it was great because the professors turned around and concluded exactly the same thing that we thought. It's all fake. But because there are a number of people that are involved in this case, or the researchers, which we know, which we've worked alongside because we had to be diplomatic, we never released a conclusion. We never did. I thought it'd go away then because I'd done my work. And the people who were seemingly involved in this realized that we'd done our work. So they started to give up the fight for it because Mera was on the black market for $1 million. The small ones were on the market for 100,000 each. And selling. That's the problem. And selling. Already aware of 2 sales took place. One to Japan. A lot of money. And because it's such a big black market for this, and it's uncontrollable, I'm sure your wife will probably agree with that. We'll tell you about what the situation is in Peru. It's a terrible shame about the culture. There needs to be really getting control over it. I was very defensive, and I worked with the Peruvian government. They were looking for the bodies, and I went, not. I said, I know where they are. They're over there. I told them. And of course, Mera and Wawita were taken and placed into a museum, thank God. And for me, I was very challenged about this investigation because it really bothers me somewhat when you're involving real people that are being dug up and manipulated in this manner.
If I may, it was hard to watch actually your update to the documentary because which I think you just put out a week ago, right? I mean, it was only a few days ago, and I watched it, and it comes through. I mean, you can see how you're visibly uncomfortable with what you have to explain. I was when my wife walked in, I was watching it, and she said, "What are you watching?" Her father was in La Guardia Civil. And he's part of the military, retired now. But and I explained to her, I brought her up to speed on what was going on, and she goes, "Oh yeah, my dad knows." They've been smuggling antiquities out of Peru forever. That's like huge business. And this mummy thing, it's just another piece of that, another tentacle on that.
On that thing. And you get clouded with the show, the fiasco of it all. But I talked to Barry and I said, look, these have reared their head again, and it's behind. There are certain people that are going for it again and want to use the same doctors as, oh yes, they were living, and oh yes, they're real, and they didn't even have any ball joints. Ball things have never moved.
And a lot of people don't realize that some doctors are people too, and there's a lot of poverty in Peru, and there's a lot of people will take money to say things like, I mean, how many doctors go on TV to sell stuff that we know is not good for you? There was a time where 4 out of 5 doctors recommended Camel cigarettes because they were the best.
That's it, and that's the way it is. Yeah, I understand about that. But you got to understand about the country, the way the situation is, and the poverty, and then the control and that sort of thing. Once you realise that, and you look and talk to the people of Peru, because I had 4 guys on ground in Peru that live in Peru that worked with me on this case, and they're absolutely brilliant. And we couldn't have done it without their help as well, because those were the guys on the ground, in ground zero, you could say, which really helped give us a really good understanding of what's going on in the background and how long has this been going on for. When you start really doing that, it builds this picture, and you realise, wow, we're caught up in something, to the point where the Vaqueros are coming after us. They were going to bury us out in that desert, and we were not kidding.
There's a lot of places to get buried out there. It's a very... People don't realize how desolate and it is an unforgiving place.
And that's it, And we had to don't come back to Peru. We got warnings, and we thought, okay, well, we're not going to. But that's how bad it got when we came out with this stuff. But and then we thought we'd taken a step back, disappeared away from it all, but we hadn't. We're still doing all our other work, and all of a sudden this comes out again. They're going for it a second time round. And I thought, well, how they do it is they get the media to jump on it and say, oh, these aliens are real. There's evidence of this. Doctor says this or that, which helps build the price for these things on the black market because someone naive enough to buy them. And it's just a vicious cycle. Mm-hmm. I try and teach the media, do not do this because it supports what they're trying to do. But they won't get it.
The journalism on this subject is so backwards. I feel like journalists are just like...
Yes. The media into like a dodgy double sales, double glazed window guys. They're like, that's what they are now. They all want just to sell papers, no matter what rubbish they'll print. Well, the downside of that is that this is why there is a black market, because of media, and we've tried to put an end to that. So I said to Barry, I said, look, we've been sat on this conclusion now. We put the first video out, it's on Amazon, but we've been sat on this conclusion, which was no plans to release it because we were trying to be diplomatic. And I said, look, we might as well just put it out and call it, and that's it. We walk away from it, Barry. We've done our job. We've done our work. We're already involved in other stuff. I said, what else have we to prove it? So we released it. And as you can imagine, as soon as I released it, then the phone starts going. Melissa Tittle contacts me and said, I need to talk with you because I'm going on Jimmy's show. I'm talking about these mummies and stuff. Okay, no problem. And it's just been a constant. But I will always still get plenty of emails and plenty of messages, my inboxes, from people say, I'm part of the debunking crew. I'm part of working for the government to make sure these things don't get out. These little aliens are this, that, and the other. And of course, fine. All I can do is do what I do at the end of the day and put the information out. I'll leave people to make their own minds up. But I thought, if anybody in the media sees it, then they might just say, okay, I'm going to write this article just a little bit differently, just in case. And that's what I was trying to achieve. Yeah. And it was hard. I wasn't going to put it out. It was really hard to do because I feel for the people, I feel for the culture. And it was a very personal thing for me being there and with these people. So I was frustrated. We were both frustrated, angry about it. But at the same time, we thought, let's try and be diplomatic. Let's try and be, semi-political in some nature about it. And we weren't going to release it. But then with everything that happened, we thought we'd have to. And we did do. I'm glad we did because it's over and done with now. Our final statement said, and we can walk away. But there'll still be people that will always believe what they want to do at the end.
Have you at all, and I'm assuming you're too busy to keep up with this story now that you've kind of moved on, but have you kept up at all with recent development? Because it seems like there's so new much stuff.
People are sending me stuff every day. Steve, have you seen this? Steve, have you seen this? And I look in and I just shake my head. And because, I'm dealing with this type of work over here where we've got physical evidence of gravitational welds being produced by the manifestation of UFOs in a key area. And that is fundamental. And then I've got, oh my God, I've got the mummies in my face again. And people say, have you seen this? Have you seen this? It's this, that, and the other. This doctor says this, and it's the same old story over and over again. It's just coming at a different angle. They're going to keep doing it until they can get bites of interest.
It's a business, and this whole field is so full of misinformation and disinformation and money people, and
I can't sit on the fence anymore. I mean, to me, I think it's shameful that certain parties who I know in this subject, who've been involved a long time, would even be part of being involved in this. They're not stupid, surely. I mean, I've got 16-year-olds that could work this out in a flash and say, oh, I know what's going on here.
Yeah.
And yet there are people I know who will say, oh, well, we love him and he's great and he's done great for this subject. Really? What's he doing for it now?
What clinched it for me was in your update piece, the interview you had with the gentleman who was tasked with gathering the bits and pieces that they were going to use to make these mummies. It was a really heart-wrenching thing to watch, actually. And he's talking about how little he got paid and how basically he was coerced and made to go gather bits and pieces of, it's pretty dark. And I'll put a link to it in the notes. And if people want to watch it, they should check it out. But it's right there. It's, he's like, this is what we did. There's a factory where they make these things. It's pretty.
Yeah. And we actually, they had a second body because we got confirmation that the body was ready. The second body, which never got released, actually. There was a nail of a mirror, should we say. Thank God, it never got released. But, and they don't deal with now. They realize that the government will jail them. It's as simple as that. You had these bodies. We know they've been doctored. Relinquish now. So they've relinquished Mera and Wawita, which are real bodies which have been dug up and manipulated, which gets me very angry. And they're in a place of rest now in a museum in Eco, and which is good. But this is why they're dealing with the toys now, the little dolls. So they won't be dealing with real bodies anymore. Otherwise, they're going under lock and key.
And the people behind the big cover-up, the legacy cover-up, have every reason to push narratives that go nowhere, that are dead ends, that turn out to be hoaxes in the end anyway, because the more people see this in the public and then it falls apart, the less interest they have. They just go, oh, it's all bullshit anyway, so why should I pay attention?
It's why damages. It's why I got 43. At the end of that conclusional documentary, you'll hear me say that, this is what is damaging the subject. It damages the research, the proper research that myself and Barry and many others that I know in this game are doing really good stuff. It damages them. It damages the credibility of the subject. And then people find out, oh, well, it was all rubbish. Then they start to believe, well, it probably all is rubbish.
I'm telling you, look, guys, if you want to really meet some non-human intelligence, go do ayahuasca, go to the jungle and get with a good medicine man, and you will find yourself in the presence of non-human intelligence. Exactly. I guarantee.
You definitely will. So that's how it is with the mummies. I'm sure it'll continue. I mean, I'm hoping it might die down again because they're not going to get, and we may be been an impact again, which they probably hate us for. But then he might come around again in another 5 years. Who knows? You just seem to leave it for a while and then try and ignite the fire again in some case.
Do you subscribe to the idea of a precursor civilization, or do you think that that's
absolutely
nonsense?
Pre, actually. You know what? We go through a cycle. Humanity goes through a cycle every so often. It's a bit scary to find out, really. You know what? We do. And
we're coming up on another one, aren't we?
At some stage, yes. And you know what? I don't think you should worry about it. It's just part of life. It's a natural cycle of everything. Everything comes and goes. Everything goes round. Everything is a cycle. Even the planets, the solar system, the universe, everything in life is. It's just our cycle, humanity's cycle. And we'll go round and round. We'll reach a certain era, and then boom, we'll plummet, and then we'll go again. And if there's only several people that have, that survive, and none of us are rocket scientists, then rockets will be lost. How do you build a rocket? I can't build a rocket. Rockets have lost. There's no rocket engineers anymore. That's gone, and it has to build again. This is the same thing. It happens. Little bits come through every now and again.
You could see it happening. I mean, I think, and this is where a lot of people miss about the climate change issue is you have 8 billion people that need to be fed on a reliable schedule. You have to be able to reliably produce grains at scale to feed enough people to keep society working, if you want the internet and you want to have rockets and you want to have jet travel and all these things, we're so distributed and it's such a complex system. All it takes is, 2 weeks without enough food.
The whole system starts to collapse. I mean, I was reading something the other day that they've actually brought some pesticides out, which are actually killing honeybees. I just thought, oh my God, do people know the balance of the honeybee itself just across the planet? I mean, that impact alone could wipe out half of humanity. And I just don't think, and I think it's such a balance. We're walking on literally such a thin line of trying to keep people in order of doing things. The implications could be drastically and huge, massively drastic.
We're standing on a tightrope made of dental floss.
But you know what? I think it is what it is, and the cycles will come and cycles will go. And this cycle, our previous cycle, and so on and so forth. The Earth will heat up. The Earth will go cold. It's all, and we can point our finger wherever we want. Oh, it's climate control, it's ozone layers, it's the ice melting. They'll come up with all these wonderful things. But at the end of the day, cycles are just cycles, and they'll just carry on and on and on. And we can always point the finger at people because we can make somebody pay for it. It's the cows farting in the field, or it's your car with too much exhaust fumes coming out. You got to pay extra, and someone's always to blame except for the natural cycle.
Your work on Project Doorway is what brought you to my attention initially, and then I started a deep dive, and I had to put on extra gear to go all the way down. It was a long dive. Can you talk about Project Doorway?
Project Doorway, I work with Barry Fitzgerald. Some people know him from, he's been involved in a lot of television like myself over the years. He was in Ghost Hunters International as a lead investigator, 53 countries, and he did for so many years. But his background isn't really the paranormal. His background is ancient science, and he's had an interest in the UFO phenomenon, of course. And I came from the paranormal side, so we kind of met in the middle, really. But we both came to the same conclusions, but from two different kind of angles, and that's how kind of we just ticked so well together. We realised we're both on the same page, and we both know what we're doing. And you have to go through a lot of years of work to do that, really. You can't think you just wake up one night and realise, okay, this is what it is and this is what I need to do. And the whole point of this is advancing the subject of UFO research, or the UFO phenomena, or UAP now if you want to refer to it now, because I like to think of the new reboot after 70 years, pretending that they're not starting anything. Yeah, exactly. So the whole point is trying to advance what we currently know. And myself and Barry have achieved more in 6 years than what's happened in the last 60, to be honest with you. That's the truth. I'm not just saying it because it's me. I mean, other people recognize it for what it is. That the research involved now demonstrates that the UFOs are completely manipulating to the point where they introduce infrasonic sounds into the atmosphere, which affects its environment and those within it. That its ship, in some cases, and occupants, or both, are aware of the electrons differing through observation, like the double slit experiment. In other words, the observer effect. When they're being watched, they tend to know. And they have a choice to interact or not. But when they do, it's a bit like Bluetooth pairing. It's called the conscious connection with the observer. That can happen. We've got it measured at 20 seconds. I don't know if it can happen faster than that. But your discernment can be manipulated within 20 seconds observing the craft. When that happens, what people don't know who are witnessing the phenomena is that they drop us into a theta brainwave whilst we're consciously awake, which is not normal. And it does that because in theta, in that brainwave state, we're easily manipulated. We have that through dream process, hypnagogic, hypnopompic states, hypnosis. We're kind of very open to manipulation and perceptions, and they've got us. We can do what they want. We can get us to see what we want, manipulate us. And in that process, our cognitive actions are limited. In other words, we don't cognate properly. In other words, we don't think about taking photographs. We don't think about acting out what we should do during those experiences. Only afterwards we think, why didn't I do this? Why didn't I do that? That's the reasons why we're manipulated by the phenomena. Now, we find the same triggers with sulfur odors from the UFO phenomena in cryptids, in the paranormal and demonological. It's the same stuff. We're also finding the infrasonic disturbances from the cryptid phenomena and the paranormal. We're just finding all the connections between this phenomena.
So you're saying all of these seemingly unrelated things are inducing a theta wave brain
UFO
state upon 20 seconds of being
some of these
observed?
But they're found within the various fields. So it's like, it doesn't just happen in UFOs. It can happen in the paranormal. It happens in cryptids. It's cryptid encounters. We also have sulfur in every camp. We have paralysis in every camp, confusion in every camp, fear feeding. What's the difference between a cryptid sighting and poltergeist? Nothing. They're both fear feeders. It's a parasitic phenomena that wants to generate fear and upset. Because these are predators. When they hunt somebody down and they get to them, what do? Well, they don't go for the kill. All predators go for the kill. It's part of the hunting, pursue them and kill. Hunt, pursue, kill, hunt, pursue, kill. They don't. They get there and they kind of, all right, game's up, can't get any more fear out of you, I'm off. And they run away. And that's what they tend to do because they're fear feeders, like poltergeist phenomena, fear feeders are fear feeder, the parasitic phenomena, same sort of thing. But they're all connected in multiple ways. There's thousands of connections between these. I could list these going all night. We want to talk about paralysis, for an example, be it an apparition, shadowy apparition in your bedroom, a haunted house, be it small beings, a light coming through your window, paralysis, the same thing. The phenomena is manipulating what we've already got inside.
Do you think that this is all related to the abduction phenomenon? Is that something separate?
Well, the abduction phenomenon does happen, absolutely. Yeah, there's physical evidence of that. I think the problem is knowing what is actually happening, because we assume that they are physically taken. But what's the difference from being non-physically taken? Because you can be non-physically taken, just like remote viewers do. We can take people under hypnosis and put a 2p piece on their arm and tell them it's hot, and it will blister their arm. How does it blister their arm? It's not hot. How do they do that? Well, they convince the physiological body that that's why physical marks happen on people when they've not even been taken physically. They can be taken in a non-physical sense. They are manipulators of our consciousness. And we consist more than just the physical body. What we don't realize is that what happens to us in the non-physical body affects the physical body. We always know that. How do we have stigmata? Well, because of our beliefs. We believe it so much and so powerful that it creates it on the body. And this is how it's done. The problem is that they might have the mental memories of these events, and they might have the markings to prove it. So therefore, is it a physical event? This is the problem. When you get taken through walls and taken through ceilings, just like astral projection or, an out-of-body experience is the same sort of thing. And they have these encounters. Now, don't get me wrong. There are physical incidents as well that do take place, but there are also non-physical. But we just can't seemingly get our heads around that because we don't understand how the non-physical can be physical in nature, which it can be. We proved it. So the whole thing about that project is about the connectivity. It's about demonstrating where the UFO phenomenon really is. If it's right under our noses, it's countless years old. It's ancient. There's no superhighway of traffic going backwards and forwards from Earth. There isn't. I mean, there's a UFO seen every 8 seconds during the day, and that's calculating. We're being comprehensive here. We're calculating that there are countries that haven't given us that data. Some of them might be hoaxes, fair enough. Some of them misidentifications. But even so, if you talk about 8 seconds, a UFO is seen every single day, then there are thousands upon thousands of UFOs seen on them every 24 hours.
So we're surrounded.
There are no
constantly.
Superhighway going back. Oh, we've got some bits out there because they can track it through ionospheric disturbances we've set it. I talked to the astronomers. In fact, they turned around and said to me, space is unusually quiet. What a comment. Space is unusually quiet.
It's interesting because are you familiar with the STS-75 NASA video with the tether? And you see dozens of these things just pop onto the screen out of nowhere. It looked like you were looking into a microscope at a petri dish from pond water, and suddenly there's like these 3 dozen craft or whatever they are just pop out of nowhere.
They're observers, they're the watchers. They're always watching us. They watch everything we do, and putting on that beacon of electromagnetic energy out on a tether in space, and something went wrong. Of course, they're going to swarm that. They want to think, what the hell is this? What's going on? What is it? They're like kids sometimes. They really are. They're intuitive about what we do. And that's why they monitor us. That's why they're looking always at our technology. They even visit our air shows and watch the air shows go on.
I was really fascinated by how you monitor your own brainwave patterns. Can you talk about that a little bit? When you go on a research trip and you're out in the field, talk about what you do.
The psychology in me tells me why. I've been, I'm talking from experience as well because it's happened to me. I've experienced things at close hang. Anybody that knows me, I'd jump out the car, pursue it. The phenomenon don't scare me. I can deal with it. And I'd be straight out of that car, slam the brakes and out of the car and away. No. I travel on and on with it going over and over in my head. And then eventually, half a mile down the road, it suddenly slammed my brakes on and I go, did you just see something? Other people go, oh my God, we just saw this, we just saw that. Why didn't we act? We weren't allowed to act it out. So that's like limited cognition that I had. The phenomena grabbed us. Start to realize that from a psychological point of view and thought, hang on a second, what's going on? What's going on? Is something going on that we're not aware of? Because what's the chance of us even finding out that our brainwaves are being altered? Because we never had equipment, mobile equipment that could measure brainwave. We'd have to go into an EEG meter, and those things are about this size of a small television. You don't want one of them around on the malls. It's you have to go to certain scientific places and hospitals and stuff like that. But now, with wonderful technology, don't get me wrong, we spend a hell of a lot of money on this technology. It costs a fortune. And sometimes we have to wait a real long time for getting somebody to invent the damn things. But when things come out, it opens up an area of research, and that was been allowing us to utilize something which is referred to as flow bands, bioflow bands. And they fasten over your head. And what it does is it measures your brainwave activity to your mobile phone device on the go. You could use it for meditating and seeing different types of how you can actually train yourself into go to meditational states of theta, by looking at what you're doing on there and going, okay, well, I need to practice this a bit more. And so it's helpful for that.
This is off the shelf, commercially available.
We're only pretty new, though. We've only been out for the last 12 months. And you can measure this in the brainwave activity on the go, mobile. So if you're out on location doing an investigation and you're an experience, you become to experience something, then that data and what your brain is doing at the time of that experience is being monitored. We've never had that opportunity before. And then we suddenly realize, hang on a second, what is happening? I didn't even know. You didn't know. But it's happening to us. We wouldn't have even known. We're so like puppets on a string. We're so manipulated by the phenomena. We're glamoured. Put beautiful lights to display. Glamoring.
That's the word.
To glamour with, beautiful lights with, oh, look at me. It's a magician's hand. It's like, look there, but don't look over here.
Thank you. This is, again, that's why I love your stuff, Steve. It's so great to talk to you, because every time you would say something, I'd be like, what? I have before I can even think of the next question, you're already answering it. People ask so often, they're like, why do they put lights on their ship? Why do their ships all have lights on them? Well, why does a fishing lure have beautiful colors all over it? It's like you're trying to attract the fish, right? I mean, is that really what you think is good? The glamoring effect is
they grab your conscious connection. It's like, you know what? It doesn't surprise me that in the ancient times, when you refer to him as the earliest contact with these beings were the serpent gods. Serpents. What are they referred to? What are they known to do? Hypnotize. How did he do that? Look at me. I'll hypnotize. You remember the snake out of the Jungle Book? Da-da-da-da-da. Serpents, snakes. It's look at me. Right? Don't take your eyes off me, that sort of thing. I've got you. You're in my sights. I've got you under my control. Same thing. Yeah, and that's what this conscious connection can do. It can grab your thoughts, it can grab your mind and grab your cognitive abilities so that you don't function properly, you don't think right, you don't perceive properly. And when it does that, it can manipulate you. And manipulate it could end up, okay, it's an all right experience, or okay, no, it wasn't a good experience. There's a gamble that's involved. People shouldn't go heartily into the wilderness on their own in the middle of the night seeking out this phenomenon. I wouldn't do it. I certainly wouldn't introduce my children to it, so it's not something that is good. And take that gamble, because there is we think of it as good and bad, but there isn't with them. They're void of motion. There is only agenda. And if they're going to slice and dice you, or if they're going to teach you how to create a puzzle, it doesn't matter to them. They don't think one thing is good and one thing is bad. They are void of emotion. It is agenda. That's all they're doing. They've got to do that job. They'll do it. And we have to go, oh, God, it was a bad event. It was a good event. It was a good event. It was a bad event. That's our human minds trying to fathom it out. But they don't think like us.
That's such an important point, because we anthropomorphize so often with this. And there's this, you mentioned the Love and Light Brigade. And I think people who are new to this topic, one of the first things that you kind of come into is that there's a camp of people who think It's all love and light. Don't worry. We're going to all ascend to the next level. And the Ashtar Galactic Command is just waiting for us to join. And then on the other side, you have people who are like, no, these things walked through my bedroom wall. They took me onto a craft. They stuck tubes into my body. They did experiments on me. I have PTSD for the rest of my life. I'm psychologically destroyed from this. No one believes me. And on the other, I've got Bud Hopkins, David Jacobs books right here next to me, and I'm reading these books. They keep me up at night. Sometimes I can't sleep, and I'm like, what? And then sometimes you'll see stories where it's like they do all these horrifying things, and then it's like, but at the end of it, I was overcome with this sense of love and joy and the warmest.
That's it. There is a narrative. And I can tell you what, it's difficult because there are researchers in this field which are like, oh, they're all here positive, they're upgrading humanity, they care about us, they care about the planet. Really? They care about us? Where have they been for the last God knows how many years when we're killing them millions in religion and this and that? They care about the planet, or where have they been and what they're doing. It's too late now.
They sure didn't care when we dropped 2 atomic bombs on 2 cities full of civilians that were on their way to work and school. And I mean, they didn't stop that.
Notions like that. I'll tell you what's interesting probably too, then, is about our development and how the planet, not in the ecology of the planet, but to some points, without going into too much, it's like there's a war going on. And I don't think we're winning. It's not looking great the way that people utilize the phenomena for their own good, for greed, for being successful in areas which isn't good. That's profiting. There's a reason why that they can utilize the phenomena, but it doesn't end well. But you know what? You'll do good in this life. Wealth and health, that's it. That's all what people want, really, at the end of the day. You know what? The longer picture is usually something pretty bad. This phenomena has always been deceptive. It's just been brushed away under the carpet. They don't want people to know about the 1977, 1978 Calaveras UFO incidents where people were attacked. People died. Over 1,200 people affected. 6 people dead. They took out the iron out of the body because they don't like the iron, of course. And this has been going on for a long, long time. They get swept under the rug. People get killed by this phenomenon. And it just disappears because it gets swallowed up. I mean, the aerial school incident, right, which took place in Zimbabwe, when the object came down in the school grounds, all the kids saw it. And it was all an okay story initially when it first came out. Oh, well, the kids got this nice message about looking after planet Earth. Well, why give it to the kids? It's a one-liner again. Here's the one-liner. Feed it to the kids. What are the kids going to do? Are they too daft to understand that there's no point telling the kids? No, because they've interacted with adults on many occasions without any problems. But then you get to hear the proper story, which came out in Aerial, the actual documentary, and finally came out, that all the kids ran away except for 4. This being was stood on its craft. It's a great, but with a long black hair, of course, because they can do that. 38 different various types of grays. And what it does is the kids are hypnotized. Here we go with the old thing again, on a figure of another alien, because there was only one there on the ship, another alien that appears in the field, and it's skipping and jumping along. And then it stops, disappears, comes back, skipping and jumping along. The kids are hypnotized to it. And whilst they're locked onto that, hypnotized with it, this is the phenomena grabbing them, the real entity approaches it and gets within at least a couple of meters away. And when the time they realize it's there and the message it's saying, I want you to come with us, if that's not deception, if that is not something to worry about, then I don't know what is. And it was even there then. It was initially supposed to be, it's a nicey story. They just want us to come down and pass the message on to the kiddies to save planet Earth. Yeah, right. And it's like that in many, many cases that we go and look at. And we start digging into them and we start really talking to the people involved. We start to realize, hang on a second, why is these factors being taken from the stories? The important.
Well, can I just ask you point blank? I mean, is this a threat? Should we consider, like, if you were brought in front of the United Nations and they sat you down in front of a room with 150 world leaders and they said, Steve, what's up? What's going on? Is this a threat? How should we conduct ourselves?
We can't control it. It can manifest anytime it wants to. You know, it can act like normal aircraft flying in the duration of the sky, and it can be tracked on radar. But at any given time, it can go pop. I'm out of your reality. See you later. You know, and that's or if you get too close to aircraft, it can go bang, and there's an EMP and stop you getting any closer. They can control lots and lots of things, but we can't manipulate. They're the master manipulators. The thing is, though, giving that one-liner to the kids, just trying to get closer enough to them to be able to take them. You know, that's just deceptive. That to put on that, it's like putting on the light show. It's the glamoring effect. It's how to keep the kids' attention. You know, where's the honesty in that? There's no love and light there. But there are probably people in the field, and I know of some, which are good friends. And I think, you know, I really do like what they do. But at the end of the day, they follow the narrative. And because what they do is the people that are taken and having these experiences are fed the narrative. Oh, we come from this planet. Oh, we want you to do something for the planet. Oh, yes, we're the good guys, and da. We're going to upgrade you. It's all about your consciousness, and ha ha ha. Okay, I get it. But do we trust the narrative that they're getting? Because they'll just believe it. And then what happens is they'll go and tell a researcher, and then the researcher believes this is the narrative. They're all good aliens, and starts writing books about, oh, these are all the good aliens. We can only say, look, you know what? We cannot ignore the evidence for poor, negative, nasty stuff that's gone on with this phenomena. It happens. And when people are taken and the whole scenario is manipulated, people say, oh, well, it must have been a government doing this, pretending to be aliens, because we saw humans on there as well. Oh, you saw a human what? Oh, well, there was like 3 doctors in white, you know, in dressed like doctors, whilst these aliens were stood around doing this. Really? You think they were doctors? Or do you not think that they actually perceive themselves to be doctors to help with the situation because there's just a gender? I've had people talk to me about, oh, yes, they're alien encounters. They were taken and they were in a doctor's room. It laid out like a old wooden doctor's room, and he was dressed like an old doctor. And so this was far from a doctor, of course. Didn't quite get it right, but they saw through it. But the whole thing is if everything is just it is what it is and fair play, then, you know, why has it got to be so much deception? You talk about Travis Walton. I mean, years back then, it was like, oh, well, stay away from the grey aliens because those are the bad guys. You want to stick with the space brothers because those are the good guys. They don't work with the good and bad. Well, how do you fit Travis Walton phenomena in then, the incident? You know, how do you explain that? They're working together all of a sudden? Well, no, I don't think so. I mean, Travis woke up, realised what was going on, saw these 3 grey aliens around him, swung out at them in sheer panic. These poor little things don't have anything physical might to themselves, ran out the room. And how was the whole order, the whole event dealt with? Well, suddenly turns up a guy who looks human, and he reconciles him and gets him off the ship ASAP.
Yeah, he walked around the ship and he goes into another room, and then I think there were like 2 or 3 humans. Yeah, something to that effect.
No, they dealt with it, you know. But I mean, how come it could just be the same phenomenon? Just okay, let's perceive it to be something else.
I always find it fascinating too that when you see some of these encounters, like Jim Sparks has it's a really interesting story, and I've read his book and watched his presentations, and he talks about, you know, oh yeah, I'm there, and then I walked out, and there's an 8-foot tall reptile, Gorn, you know, and most people would have an aneurysm and just drop, you know, if you really saw it the way that they're describing it, you would have a heart attack and just drop dead. I can't imagine. And these people are like, oh yeah, I walked in the room. There's a 9-foot mantis, praying mantis with a robe and a hood. And it's like
things, they're physical constructs. They are as physical as anything else, just like Bigfoot. just like Dogman, just like a werewolf, don't matter. People have these encounters with these things. It's all the same phenomena. It's just various different forms and different agendas. But it's been going on for a very long time. The whole hypothesis of Mera goes back thousands of years of half human, half beast things. They've been going on in every culture for thousands and thousands of years. All we've got to do is look at the Egyptian culture for all that, don't we? Well, the thing is that there's a trace element that goes, a fine thread that runs right through them all, which links them all together. And it's still going on even currently, even now. I mean, of course, you look at even significant disappearances. You look at the 411 cases of missing 411. David Palladie's work, incredible work he's doing. But they're in key locations. Those key locations are positive magnetic anomalies. This is where the phenomenon manifests, and it's regular. And if you take just take 2,000 of the world's biggest cases and use geological satellites, 2 of them in orbit, to look at the electromagnetics and the geographic-ology of the land in regarding magnetics, you'll see that there are key locations where phenomena strike, paranormal, UFO, and cryptid alongside. It's the same locations as these highly profound disappearances are happening. It's all over the world in various different regions, has various different names. If it's the Emsky Triangle in Russia, or it's somewhere in China, or it's the national forests in America, it's all over the country, in different countries. But it's a phenomenon that's taking people at will whenever it wants to, because it just does that. And has been doing that for a long time, but it gets covered over because now there's big concerns. Investigations officially have to take place. So how did he cull it? They cull the information from getting out to the general public, which is what he's discovered, David Palladie's. And it's the same locations where all this phenomenon is taking place. And eventually, I'm glad he did his third documentary. It says The UFO Connection, which is his third documentary, Missing 411, The UFO Connection, because I thought, finally, he didn't want to go there. He didn't want to mention it because he thought, oh, God, I don't want to get into the UFO community because I'm a police officer and I'm investigating these people, the profound disappearances. I don't really want to get into the UFO stuff because everybody keeps saying, oh, are there being aliens taken? But the realistic of it is that there's real stuff going on like that, and the UFO presence is there. People are seeing them, reporting them, and so on and so forth. And it's well documented, even in police reports. Finally, he goes, okay, well, I can't hide away with it now anymore. I have to release it. And so eventually, he releases his third documentary, Missing 411, The UFO Connection. And it's exactly the same work that we're doing, which is doing it from a different angle, but it means the same thing. So people are slowly but surely building a pattern of events. This has been going. I was told that people knew about this in the government circles in 1982 about the positive magnetic regions and the UFO connection. That's been going on for a long time.
I think that's what was so fascinating about your work in Project Doorway was that it almost starts to give us the tools to predict when and where. If you wanted to set up and observe and know that something was going to happen, you obviously want to look at the places where it's most likely to happen. Invest your time
you can get
there.
Hold of
it seems
equipment. We have time displacement meters. These measure time, and then there's 100. It's on a long lead, about 100 feet. It measures at the device. It measures at the probe. So it looks for differentials in time. Now that shouldn't happen. Any time differentials shouldn't happen, but they happen in locations where there's manifestation of the UFO phenomena. But it's not there all the time. It only lasts about 48, 72 hours, so you've got to hot track it there. And when you get there, if you're lucky enough to get into the right location, you can measure the time effect and its latency. Now, it's only might be microseconds of latency, but it shouldn't exist in physics. It shouldn't exist unless there's miniature black holes around them.
You're talking about the echo of an encounter.
Let me explain this. Okay, Einstein once said, two things in same space and time can't exist together. One thing has to give. So what happens is when a UFO manifests, if you're just in a hole in the sky somewhere, there's things in that hole. There's light waves, there's gravity, there's all sorts of things. So what happens is it disappears and gets replaced by the manifestation of the phenomena. Be the UFO, whatever. What happens is that when it eventually collapses and goes back to its other reality, there's a void there. And it gets smaller and reduces over a period of time, but it takes about 48 or 72 hours to diminish. If you can get to the location, you can measure the differences in time latency. The measurement device measures latency, the time, it's evidence. So people came to us and said, oh, how do you know that equipment's okay? All right, so we've got another piece we've not got one, we've got two. Let's try another one. Exactly the same thing. How do you work that out? We've got two faulty pieces of equipment. Oh, can we get a third? We'll get a third one. Test it. Same again. Well, we need something to show that it's visible. So we had to go to whole lengths of proving this. And we had arguments, believe it or not, a couple of arguments with people, physicists, who said it can't be done. You can't see light bend. There's no, the gravity it's required to bend light is about the gravity of the sun. You can't be seen, can't be visualized. I said, I'll prove you wrong. And we did, because we got a laser pen. And it's a very powerful laser. It's a green laser. It's on a special tripod, and it's fastened onto the tripod. Find the laser through a ferrocell. Now, the ferrocell is, how do I explain a ferrocell? The old lights on bikes. Yeah, and remember that glass lens, the round glass lens? That's what you refer to as ferrocell. There's a slight curvature to it. When you fire the laser onto the ferrocell, it spreads the laser light to the outer of the rim of the ferrocell, so it just looks like all the lights going in a circle around the rim of the ferrocell. You go near it with a magnet, what happens? It starts to pull the light away. You can bend light with a gravity. This is what physicists said were arguing with us. Like, oh, you can't do that. Yeah, we can. We've just done it for about £19. Here we go. Show you. That's simple. I mean, this is the problem. People say, oh, it's a physicist. He's a professor, physicist. He can't be wrong. You must be wrong. No, it's just that they don't think like us. Through for ferrocell, and you.
They start with, like we said in the beginning, they start with what they know is possible, and then everything else just has to be.
Well, yeah, in astrophysics maybe, but not like this. So what we did is, when we put that laser pen onto a target through the anomaly, and we watched it bend. The light waves bent, which was visual evidence of the gravitational well caused by the latency, because that's what causes it. Gravity, even light waves can't escape gravity. And we proved it. Okay, forget the equipment then. What about that? And they shut up. And that was really good, because I thought, okay, you're not going to argue the point now that you can bend light with a simple magnet they can buy off the internet for 50p. Just put it near it and, it does it. So we could prove that. We could visually prove it. Well, the thing is very short-lived. So we proved, okay, we know that there's gravity wells. This phenomenon, when it manifests, punches a hole through it, because two things can't exist in that hole, same space and time. And then when it diminishes, it leaves the gap and it slowly fills up. But it takes about 2-3 days, 48, 72 hours. If you can get there and measure, you've got the opportunity to measure the effects of it and video the visual effects of it. So we found them.
Can people see this? Do you have footage of this, or is this something
showing the demonstrations of that? And we put it out in the science papers. Yeah. We've still got some being peer reviewed, but we've put a couple out so far, and they've gone through it now.
And this is available through your website as well, right? I know the Project Doorway
We've got
papers.
one listed on our website. When we went through the other establishments, it got to go through them first, then back to us. Because they don't want to be the predecessor. They want them to be the first to put that out, not us, because we're utilising their services. So we've got to work on them, so that peer review process. But the whole idea is about advancing that. And that was just one little tiny piece of the other stuff that we've done. I mean, we've got equipment or recording for sonic sound. Now, there's something that we found in ancient tunnels and ancient sites, only certain ones, because the ancient civilizations destroyed 70% of their own constructs on purpose, because they were dealing with this phenomenon. And they did it, something went wrong, I don't know what, but for some reason they destroyed 70% of their own stuff. But what is remaining, there's only a handful that are still very active. They're very attuned, you see, geologically, and they're there for a reason. And when we go to these locations, we realize, how were they conversing with things beyond the veil? Utilizing this as some type of location to do that. be it a resonant chamber, for an example, ancient resonant chamber. And there was a double lock system was being used. I mean, the problem is that generating the Om, they used to have 3 or 4 people go in there and go Om, and generate an Om, because it's designed to, the Om that we were doing was designed to resonate the resonant chamber. The resonant chamber set their frequency, which is fit for the Om. It's like an amplifier.
It's like an amplifier.
And
for
it's like when you sit in the bathroom and you hum or you whistle, you'll hit a certain tune or a chord and you get that resonant sound. And you go, and that's exactly the same thing. Now, the thing is that they're aware of this and utilizing this. The problem now is that not many people generate even that Om. If you look at the Gudra mantra, for an example, which is an Om at a certain frequency, I mean, nobody can really do the Gudra mantra anymore. In fact, they were said like, they have to be taught, you have to start at about 9 and have to be taught half a lifetime to be able to do it. And that's if you even got the vocal cords doing them now, because we don't.
But we could generate this sound artificially, though.
No, you can't. That's the problem. Because what happens is this is how I get it. If in paranormal investigation, and a sound is recorded, and you go, oh my God, we've just recorded the sound of a girl talking, and you send it off for analysis. Mm-hmm. It sounds like a girl talking, but the guy will come back and say, well, it's not human vocals. I said, well, what do you mean it's not human vocals? I says, well, it sounds like a girl talking. He says, it does sound like a girl talking, but the mechanism, the analysis on the frequency shows it's not human vocals. Replication. And we can't do replication because they are different, and the system knows the difference between the two. It's got to be original. We have come close, though. You are right by saying, we have come close on occasion when we've replicated, and there's a double lock system that's involved. It's the time the sunlight enters the chamber. Sunlight is a frequency. It has, and the sunrise and the sunset generates terahertz frequency. I could go on to a whole different subject about terahertz frequency in UFOs. But terahertz frequency enters into the chamber. That's the frequency of light. Then the frequency of sound is generated through the Om. The double lock system activates and something happens in that location regarding reality. There's a reality shift, allowing you to communicate across the veil with something else that's of intelligence, given questions.
It's like our friend Steven Spielberg said it best in Indiana Jones and the Raiders. It's a radio for talking to God. And he goes into the staff and he puts the staff in the ground and the sunlight comes through and it activates the thing. And it's like,
I mean, the best we've got is the sound of moving rocks and chant and drum beat. And it's not coming from our side. It's coming from the other.
It's almost like, and I have to leave it here, but it's almost like we're inside of, I think you said earlier, this simulation is kind of the idea. It's like we're inside the simulation. If you were inside it, how would you get out? How would you communicate your way out? How could you talk up?
It's all around us. It's happening everywhere. It's very, very busy. There's lots of stuff going on, and we're just completely living our little zone.
Steve, Mera, thank you so much for this. This has been an outstanding 2 hours. I really appreciate the time. Where should people go to follow your work? What is the best place to go?
We've got videos all over the place, but I think we've been putting them on UAMN TV under Project Doorway. I think there's a new one that's just come out called Ultra Terrestrials. But that's a continuing show. It's been doing our recent work. Phenomena Magazine is also it's a free magazine which you can download for free every month, including all the archive ones. It's a magazine that goes out to 12 countries in 4 languages. It's the biggest one in the world of e-zine on the subject of phenomena. That's available at phenomenamagazine.co.uk. Or you can check me out on my own website, which is stevemera.com, MERA, stevemera.com. But you'll find me just Googling, really, I suppose. I mean, most people ask me, what are you into? So everything, I work on this 360 degrees every single day for the last 40 odd years now. And I'm involved in writing and lecturing and courses and on TV and radio. I've got just finished another big show which due out in summer of 2024 on Netflix. So it's all sorts of things just keeps going and going. But the whole point is that our work is just about trying to advance the phenomena at the end of the day. Well, people can get hold of me on all over the place. Just type in Steve Mera on Google.
That's outstanding. Steve, it's been wonderful. Thank you again.
Yeah.
I'll wrap it there.
I look forward to coming back on and give me a shout.
All right. Enjoy the rest of your
Thanks very
evening.
much,
Thank you
Clint.
so much,
Talk
sir.
soon.